Goodbye Mo Ranchen, she has already married the emperor, but was humiliated by him on her wedding night. He pinched her jaw and spoke hoarsely, Ruan Qingyin, does my nephew know that you are the woman I am tired of playing with? She was full of pain, burdened with family grudges and unable to reveal the truth. It's a coincidence that you got tired of it earlier than you did, she said. It is said that the regent, who only flipped his hands and overturned the court, was extremely disgusted with the empress above her high position and waited for her to be taken down from the horse and become a slave. Everyone is waiting to see this little queen's joke. But waiting and waiting, I only saw Mo Ranchen often accompanying her, supporting her several times, helping her to be a scumbag, and frequently sending her a beautiful peach blossom. One day, someone witnessed the regent kneeling outside the palace of the Little Empress, his voice hoarse and pitiful, Ruan Ruan, my life. Chapter 1. Ink stains dust, I pain. You are listening at novel.Audio. Pain. Outside the golden mandarin duck tent in the Ruan Feng Palace, the red wedding candle sways, reflecting the intertwined figures of the two on the bed. Ruan Qingyin raised her smooth jawline high, and the phoenix's golden steps made a faint sound. Her eyes were already wet and red, and her voice was hoarse. She avoided this man for 5 years and met him again in such an embarrassed and humiliating way. He went up and down, his wedding robe embroidered with happy mandarin ducks being torn apart in a disorderly manner. The spring color, which could not be covered by the same bright red belly pocket, was completely covered by Mo Ranchen's hand. The regent is self-respecting. Today, I am getting married to the emperor. Your actions are disrespectful to me, the empress. Ha! Mo Ranchen's throat forced out a narrow smile, but his hands kept moving. The armor was cold and hard, intentionally or unintentionally scraping her skin, making her want to dodge, but she was grabbed by her waist and tightly wrapped under her body. Since I dare to break in, I am not afraid. Today, I will reminisce with the empress and relive our past feelings. After all, 5 years ago, the empress repeatedly told me that she would never marry me in this life. Ruan Qingyin gritted her lips tightly, preventing her thoughts from wandering with his movements. Mo Ranchen had just started a war, but in the middle of the night, she was able to drive her horse directly into the palace, and even easily climb into her wedding room, showing how powerful she was in the palace. Ruan Qingyin couldn't even associate him with the man who knelt outside the Ruan mansion 5 years ago, even though he was extremely weak, silently pleading with her not to abandon him. That misunderstanding pushed the two apart. Goodbye today, it's already unrecognizable. He is the regent with great power, while she is the empress who has just married into the palace, carrying the expectations of the Qingyin family. Ruan Qingyin's thoughts gathered and she held down the rough hand that the man had almost completely penetrated into his skirt, trying to suppress his trembling voice. Are you really not afraid? You finally climbed up to this position, one person below 10,000 people above 10,000 people, with a bright future in front of you, but you are willing to end up on my bed. Ha! Mo Ranchen forced a narrow and sarcastic smile into his throat, casting a playful gaze at Ruan Qingyin. The empress thinks highly of herself. If I were caught, it would only be a punishment. It's you, I'm afraid it might be difficult to survive tonight. The thick cocoon fingertips scraped past her waist, playing with them inch by inch, but the movements were extremely rough, almost crushing her. In his deep black eyes, there was no trace of ripples. He slowly lifted his thin lips and said, but in the midst of an old love affair, I can actually collect your body. What kind of coffin do you prefer, golden silk or agarwood? Ruan Qingyin's spine stiffened suddenly. How could she forget that Mo Ranchen now holds a tiger talisman and is in charge of the East Factory? Even the emperor dare not easily provoke him. But she was different. Her father had a murder case on his back, and his brother was also sent to the border. On the day she married into the Ruan family, her sister-in-law was forced into the palace and became a concubine. The mother with white hair on her temples and almost crying her eyes, as well as the one that the Nguyen family has been protecting. The Ruan family, now only she is left with the ability to turn the tide for the family's market. Outside the door, footsteps hurriedly sounded, from far to near, holding on to Ruan Qingyin's heart. Who? Ruan Qingyin questioned, but due to the actions of the man's subordinates, the word added a touch of coquettishness. The room is full of beautiful scenery, ready to emerge. The person stood outside the door with a sharp voice and said, "Empress, our family is next to the emperor. Let's call it Yan Shi." Yan Shi, the eunuch beside the emperor, was loved by the emperor and is said to be his trusted assistant. Ruan Qingyin's heart tugged fiercely, unable to imagine what a tragic ending it would be if Yan Shi found out that the regent was lying on her bed. She felt anxious in her heart, but still tried to calm down on her face. She suppressed her voice and asked, "So it's Grandpa Yan Shi. What's up? Empress, can we come in?" Yan Shi asked. He is about to enter the room, and the ink-stained dust on the couch will have nowhere to hide, and it will be seen at a glance. Ruan Qingyin was eager and reached out to push the man away, but she was grabbed by her fingertips and played with them one by one. Mo Ranchen's eyes were filled with a faint smile, and he placed Ruan Qingyin's hand on his lips. Heat overflowed from his fingers, and his voice sounded like a goo. "Empress, why don't you respond? Do you need me to take care of you?" As he finished speaking, he lifted his thin lips and the words, "Come in," had already surged to his lips. Crazy. Ruan Qingyin was both angry and anxious, with more sadness in her heart. Nowadays, Mo Ranchen hates her to the bone marrow, otherwise she wouldn't have humiliated and teased her so much on her wedding day, and even wanted her to die. But she cannot die, her family revenge has not been avenged, and she must sit firmly in this position of empress. Without considering anything else, Ruan Qingyin leaned in and sealed his mouth with her lips. Those two words were crushed in this kiss, tossed and turned, and the woman's restless hand also wrapped around his waist, groping recklessly. Mo Ranchen couldn't help but go crazy, greedily wanting to draw more. Until the bloody smell permeated. The charm of the entire room was shattered, and Mo Ranchen's handsome eyebrows were tinged with a cold forest. Chapter 2, Let him come in and take a look. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mo Ranchen reached out and rudely broke open Ruan Qingyin's legs. A dagger that almost completely penetrated her thighs, only revealing the handle, burst into sight. Blood surged out crazily, and in an instant, it gathered on the couch, staining the already fiery red couch even more eerie, causing Mo Ranchen's temples to jump up and down. So, Ruan Qingyin's embrace just now was fake, just a cover-up to steal a dagger from his waist. At this moment, the room was filled with beautiful scenery, and a cold wave that was almost suffocating swept through. "Hurry up," Ruan Qingyin said with a pale face, suppressing her voice in pain. "Otherwise, I'll say you assassinated me. Even if the emperor takes you seriously and only punishes you, it's enough to make you peel off your skin." Speaking, Ruan Qingyin hid her trembling hand behind her. Even before entering the palace, she had practiced countless scenes of stabbing herself to avoid the emperor's misfortune. But if she really inserted the dagger, or did it to force Mo Ranchen away, her heart still jumped into her throat. Mo Ranchen's face was extremely gloomy, and his hands tightened, wishing to crush Ruan Qingyin. 5 years ago, he was imprisoned, and Ruan Qingyin broke off ties with him without blinking an eye. Now, he has been sent to the army like this. Ruan Qingyin, that's great. After getting angry, Mo Ranchen's eyes quickly narrowed and he smiled, "The Empress is so considerate of me, and I naturally appreciate it. However, I need to return the dagger. Please hold back and don't shout out and harm me." After speaking, he directly pulled down Ruan Qingyin's belly and stuffed it into her mouth. With a knife in her hand, Ruan Qingyin's muffled groan was blocked by her belly pocket, leaving only intense pain that made her eyes pitch black and almost faint. Mo Ranchen wiped the dagger clean on her lotus-like arms before leaving through the window and disappearing into the night. Empress. She outside the door probably didn't receive an answer for too long, with a hint of displeasure in her tone. Can we come in? Ruan Qingyin spat out her belly pocket, pulled out a few silver threads, and used all her strength to hide everything in a spacious robe of joy. Come in, she said. She pushed the door open and entered. The bloody aura in the room made him frown. What's wrong with the Empress? It's okay, it's just that the monthly affairs in our palace have suddenly arrived, but unfortunately we can't serve the Emperor anymore, Ruan Qingyin replied in a low voice, unable to hear any waves. You are overjoyed. Empress Dowager, there's no need to feel sad. We're here to tell Empress Dowager that the Emperor was assassinated while driving in a sedan tonight and accidentally injured his leg. He won't be able to come to the Luan Feng Palace to accompany Empress Dowager tonight, she said with calmness. Upon hearing these words, Ruan Qingyin released her tightly clenched hand under her robe. It's great that we can't come anymore. On the surface, there was no hint of concern, but in the voice, is it serious? Shi's eyes were filled with joy. It's not too serious. Thanks to the Regent's timely appearance, he killed the assassin with just one sword, and the Emperor didn't suffer any serious injuries. Ruan Qingyin's fingertips trembled, and her heart also began to ache. When did it happen? About an hour ago. That's why Mo Ranchen came to her place after saving the Emperor. No wonder Mo Ranchen was so reckless on her bed. Even if she came, he didn't show any signs. Originally, he had known that the Emperor had injured his leg and couldn't come, so he deliberately played with her, making her afraid and embarrassed. Ruan Qingyin silently sucked her nose, and the curtain on the couch covered her slightly red eyes. She only heard a calm voice, I understand. I'm sorry to trouble you, Grandpa. There are some pastries on the table. If you don't mind, let's take a few and taste them. She followed the sound and looked at the purple sandalwood carved 8 immortals table next to him. On the table was a sweet white glazed porcelain plate filled with golden pastries. All made of gold. Madam, this pastry looks delicious. Our family thanks Empress. She smiled and almost grinned behind her ear, taking 2 pieces of golden pastry and leaving happily. Ruan Qingyin relieved her strength and her whole body was as soft as a puddle of mud, without even the strength to stand up. After resting for a while with my eyes closed, I finally recovered a bit. She habitually wants to ask Bai Shui to help her. After all, in this deep palace, there is no one else to trust except for the Bai Shui she brought from the mansion. Turning her head to see the blood on the bed, Ruan Qingyin dispelled her thoughts. Bishui is timid, don't scare her anymore. Ruan Qingyin endured the pain and tidied up the bed, drugged herself, and changed into new sleeping clothes. She was so tired that she went straight to sleep. Just that night, Ruan Qingyin didn't sleep soundly. Flipping back and forth, it was not a dream of myself and Mo Ranchen 5 years ago, or the low sobs of my parents, the panic and fear of sister.In.Law being abducted by the Emperor, and the hatred in my brother's eyes when he was sent to the border, the gentle voice in Goan Temple calling her In through the veil. The Emperor owes the Ruan family too much, and the hatred has piled up countless. Ruan Qingyin opened her eyes, and Su Yu's pillow was already soaked with tears. She was stunned for a moment, flipped the pillow over and put it back in place before someone came in to tidy up and groom herself. On the first day of her reign, according to the rules, Ruan Qingyin would go with the Emperor to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, and then receive greetings from the imperial concubines alone. But now that the Emperor's leg was injured and he couldn't go down to the ground, the Empress Dowager also went to the Hueda temple to pray for blessings. Ruan Qingyin then skipped the previous process and went directly to see the concubines. She was supported by the palace maid as she walked. Even though her movements were gentle, the wound on her leg still made her eyes ache and turn black. Like chasing ants, I finally reached the phoenix position above. Just as she sat down, someone eagerly challenged her. The Empress doesn't seem to have rested well. She slept alone during her wedding last night, isn't she used to it? This statement stirred up an uproar in the entire court. The eyes of the concubines all turned to Ruan Qingyin, their expressions varied, but none of them were without curiosity. The Empress's wedding night was not favored, a timeless wonder. When it spreads, it is simply a laughingstock for eternity. Chapter 3. Do you think I can't protect her? You are listening at novel full.audio. Ruan Qingyin followed the sound. On the purple sandalwood and red lacquer carved golden flower patterned circular chair of His Highness, a plump woman leans diagonally, with a jade bead-shaped fan half covering her smile, but unable to resist the beautiful charm. Just those eyes looking over are enough to make men all over the world feel as if they are sweet. Ruan Qingyin knows her. Ning Yenner, the eldest daughter of the current Prime Minister Ning Yuan, grew up holding a palm in her hand and is now the only noble concubine in the harem. She is highly favored by the emperor, acts arrogantly, and never looks down upon others. Before her empress entered the palace, Ning Yenner was the highest-ranked concubine in the harem. It is understandable that she was so hostile towards her. Empress Dowager, there's no need to be sad. My concubine has a palace maid who has been trained by the Ministry of Internal Affairs and knows the emperor's preferences well. Giving it to Empress Dowager is sure to come in handy. Ning Yenner looked kind-hearted. But inside and outside the words, they were all mocking Ruan Qingyin for her incompetence. Even the palace maids around her knew how to serve the emperor, while Ruan Qingyin, the empress, stayed alone in an empty room on her wedding night. What a loser. Ruan Qingyin looked at her, with a hint of undertones in her eyes as she gently stroked the embroidered phoenix in the phoenix robe. It was clearly delicate in appearance, not as charming as Ning Yenner, but inexplicably suppressed her aura, forcing everyone to breathe hard. She was originally worried about how to suppress these concubines in the harem, so Ning Yenner eagerly gave them a chance. This is Consort Ning. She is truly considerate and warm, with a broad mind. The palace maids around her can tolerate her so much, and she must be extremely affectionate. I cannot let her down, so why not arrange a place for her? Promise to stay in the side hall of your palace, Consort Ning. If there are still those around me who are so considerate, I will make the decision today and give them titles together. The voice is not loud, it exudes majesty. Ning Guifei's smile froze at the corner of her mouth. She had intended for Ruan Qingyin to embarrass herself in public and embarrass herself, but she never expected to be slapped. If we really follow Ruan Qingyin's words and send that palace maid to the promised position, wouldn't it be multiple enemies vying for favor with us? Ruan Qingyin is so bold, but she is just a daughter from an 8th-grade official family. She climbed to the throne of the empress with the help of a doll arranged by the late emperor. How dare she treat her like this? Ning Yenner's face couldn't hold for a moment, and a faint blush appeared. What's wrong with this appearance? I'm just joking with you. Since I'm your beloved palace maid, I'd better stay by your side to serve you. Ruan Qingyin changed her voice and found a step for Ning Yenner to step down. Just sitting in this position, she didn't show weakness, but she didn't want to openly tear her face with Ning Yenner. Ning Yenner's back teeth were almost crushed, and every word was squeezed out from between her teeth. I thank the Empress, my concubine, she said. As for last night, it was due to the discomfort in our palace. Fortunately, your Majesty sympathized, so Consort Ning didn't need to worry anymore. Ruan Qingyin nodded and gave a faint reason. Since the news of the Emperor being stabbed and injured has not spread, she certainly wouldn't foolishly take it out and tell these concubines. After the incident with Consort Ning, everyone became much more honest. Please be obedient and pay your respects, the etiquette is to the extreme. Ruan Qingyin responded one by one, giving gifts according to their positions, while quietly observing the expressions of everyone. It can be roughly seen that the harem is now divided into 3 parts, one following Consort Ning and being enthusiastic and cold towards her, an intention to seek her, with a gentle acceptance of the words of peace. There is also a duty to remain neutral and hold it high, regardless of personal matters. Ruan Qingyin understood the situation and felt severe pain in her leg after sitting for a long time. After finally finishing her salute, she stood up and wanted to leave. Empress. Ning Yenner stopped her. I still have a gift to give to Empress. Please accept it with a smile. She clapped her hands, and a palace maid walked forward, kneeling and bowing in a proper manner. This is the palace maid beside me. She is called Qiushui and has some martial arts skills. She is also skilled in needlework and cooking. She is also clever and sensible. The Empress Dowager gave me a gift as a concubine, and I have to repay it. Ning Yenner was smiling, and her charming eyes flashed a sinister light. Ruan Qingyin couldn't help but frown, worried about Ning Yenner's persistent entanglement, and her gaze fell on Qiushui. A very ordinary appearance, but paired with that muscular mass that even a wide palace dress cannot block, it looks difficult to deal with. No need, it's a rule to give you gifts. There's no need to reciprocate, and besides, the people dispatched by the Ministry of Internal Affairs are enough. Ruan Qingyin was not foolish and naturally wouldn't ask. Empress, don't you dislike the mediocre appearance of the palace maids sent by my concubine? Although they are a bit ugly, they were personally chosen by my father. Empress cannot believe what I say. Don't you still believe my father's judgment? Ning Yenner moved out the Prime Minister's father, but Ruan Qingyin's refusal was stuck in her throat. Ning Yenner's eyes flashed with pride, her red lips raised, and she sent envoy Qiushui, what are you waiting for? Why don't you go and serve Empress Dowager? Take good care of Empress Dowager, or else you'll be skinned. Autumn Water immediately walked towards Ruan Qingyin. Before approaching, a cold and hoarse voice came from outside the palace. Why, does Consort Ning feel that while I am sitting in the palace, I cannot protect the Empress? Chapter 4. Rouge needs to be sieved with a stomach bag for the most delicate texture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The man in gilded armor strode into the hall, his powerful aura scattered everywhere. Under his slightly furrowed sword eyebrows, his lacquered eyes looked down at the crowd without any emotion. Prince. Ning Guifei quickly stood up from the armchair, her gaze firmly fixed on Mo Ranchen's body, her voice softened. Upon closer inspection, she could still hear a hint of girlish shyness and excitement. However, Mo Ranchen's face turned extremely cold and his tone was even more sarcastic. Is Prime Minister Ning so untrustworthy of this king, afraid that someone in the palace where this king is sitting can still enter the harem and commit violence? Ning Yenner trembled with fear at his words, shook her head in denial, and said, No, you misunderstood me, Prince. With Prince Yu in charge, my father can't help but feel at ease. As for the autumn water. Before finishing his words, Mo Ranchen interrupted him. His calm voice couldn't hear any joy or anger, and there was a hint of displeasure. Since you believe in me, then you don't need her. Why don't you kill me? What? Ning Yenner stared in amazement, killed Qiushui. Can't you do it? Mo Ranchen's lips curved slightly, keep her. When I saw her, I felt disgusted in my heart. Even when I saw Concubine Ning, I felt a sense of unease in my heart. How can that be done? Almost no longer hesitating, Ning Yenner looked at Qiushui and said, Go, and get 100 zhang penalty yourself. I will send someone to send your body back to my hometown. Qiushui's face turned pale, and he knelt down with a thud for Ning Yenner. Empress Dowager, no, miss, I have been with you since I was young. Please save me, I don't want to die. Don't touch me, you too, drag her out. Ning Yenner kicked Qiushui's hand away with disdain. Two palace maids approached and dragged the autumn water away like dogs. From afar, you can still hear the cries of autumn water, gradually moving away and finally becoming quiet. Ruan Qingyin felt like she was dreaming. A palace maid whom I thought was extremely tricky, Mo Ranchen only said a few words before Ning Yenner willingly killed her. This man's abilities are truly amazing. She breathed a slight sigh of relief, feeling a little dazed by the sudden transformation of Mo Ranchen. She thought Mo Ranchen was coming to avenge last night, but she never expected that he was actually here to help her out. Just as she was thinking about it, Mo Ranchen's gaze fell on her. Empress, I, as an imperial uncle, should have sent you a wedding gift. Unfortunately, I came in a hurry and didn't prepare anything. I hope Empress doesn't mind. As he spoke, he took out a small round box resembling an enamel rose from his arms and handed it to the palace maid to be presented to Ruan Qingyin. From Mo Ranchen's smiling black eyes, Ruan Qingyin smelled an ominous aura. She didn't want to take it, but the palace maid had already delivered it to her and kindly opened the lid. It's a box of rouge, brilliantly red in an extremely beautiful color. The concubines also poked their heads and praised the quality of the rouge, which was even better than that made by Xijin Fang. Ruan Qingyin secretly scrutinized Mo Ranchen. The dignified man had a broad smile in his eyes, not as if he had tampered with his rouge. Her guarded heart gradually let go, and she took the box of rouge and lightly applied it to her white wrist. It's really beautiful, she said. Of course it looks good, but unfortunately it's not delicate enough. I heard that using a woman's belly bag to sift through it once is the best quality. In the last few words, Mo Ranchen deliberately lengthened the tone, and the ending sound twisted and twisted, as if stepping on the heart of Ruan Qingyin. My hand trembled and almost knocked over the rouge box. Ruan Qingyin tightly pursed her lips, recalling the belly pocket stuffed into her mouth by Mo Ranchen last night, her delicate red lips turning white. Mo Ranchen stood tall in the palace, and even if he said such things, no one felt anything was wrong. Only Ruan Qingyin knew that he was secretly reminding about last night's incident. What should have been known earlier is that Mo Ranchen hates her to the bone. How could he really help her? It's just clearing the roadblock for him to torture and humiliate her. Why, don't you like the gift I gave you? Mo Ranchen twisted the jade ring on his thumb and asked slowly. Ruan Qingyin closed the rouge box, forcing herself to calm down. At this moment, she must not be defeated by Mo Ranchen's little trick. If that's the case, my palace really likes it, but I prefer other things over rouge. I heard that the Regent King is skilled in medicine, especially in healing ointments for wounds. Could you please make a bottle for me as a gift? It shouldn't be too hard, right? Ruan Qingyin finished speaking in one breath, and the corner of her lips slowly curved. The newly rising golden light outside the hall reflected an indescribable warmth and softness on her cheeks, while her clear eyes concealed resilience. Humiliating her with what happened last night, she used her wound to tap and remind her. Don't be too presumptuous, even though her wound hasn't healed yet, she can still make a fool of herself. Mo Ranchen stared at her and suddenly smiled. Interesting, it's getting more and more interesting. Not only did he steal a dagger from his waist to protect himself, but he also knows how to use his strength to strengthen his position. TSK, he began to look forward to what skills Ruan Qingyin had learned in 5 years. It's time to have a good understanding. Chapter 5. Carrying Heavy Tasks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mo Ranchen slowly turned the ring of jade, his hands with distinct joints as fresh as cold jade, even his voice tinged with a hint of coolness. As long as the Empress needs it, I will naturally make it myself and offer it with both hands, he said. His Highness and the others looked at Ruan Qingyin with a hint of inexplicable awe, starting from surprise and curiosity. Even the regent, who disregarded everything and held himself high, obediently made medicine for Ruan Qingyin. Ruan Qingyin, what kind of powerful wrist do you have? Since we need medicine, we won't leave the regent in this palace, we won't send him away. Ruan Qingyin issued an order to expel the guest. If Mo Ranchen doesn't leave, the sweat in her palms will seep into the corner of her robe. I'm leaving now, Mo Ranchen said as he turned around and left. Ning Yenner's gaze moved reluctantly away from the tall and upright figure, and a hint of resentment fell on Ruan Qingyin, unable to tell whether it was exploration or taste. Empress, I didn't know that you had such a good relationship with the regent. Ruan Qingyin raised her eyebrows halfway and her voice twisted and spread outwards. I don't know, as the Empress, I have to report everything to the Empress, she said in one sentence, block Ning Yenner tightly. The concubines held their breath and no one stood up to help Ning Yenner speak. I really dare not. I can't figure out how strong Ruan Qingyin's wrist is, they don't want to easily become cannon fodder. Until Ruan Qingyin spoke to ask them to leave, everyone seemed to come back to life and hurriedly pulled Ning Yenner away from the Ruan Feng Palace. Returning to the Jinxiu Palace, Ning Yenner couldn't help but get angry and threw the fan in her hand at the concubines who followed her. Are you all dead one by one? Let me be so difficult. She lost a big face today. The fan of the falling jade bead weighed heavily and hit one of them, agreeing. Promising to scatter her hair, she knelt down with a thud, pleading for mercy with a trembling voice, Your Majesty, forgive me. I was also in a panic at the time, thinking that the regent was facing the Empress, which scared me so much that I forgot to defend my majesty. The regent Ning Yenner's eyes were gentle and regretful, constantly flashing with the handsome appearance of Mo Ranchen. After a while, she withdrew her thoughts and looked at the promise on the ground, asking, I remember in this palace that your father was a 7th-rank official, so he should be the superior subordinate of the Empress's father, right? I remember it seems so, my concubine. She nodded in agreement. Okay, you go check for me. What is the relationship between the Empress and the regent? No matter what method is used, pry out the news. Ning Yenner said with a cold expression in her eyes. As long as she knows the relationship between Ruan Qingyin and Mo Ranchen, she will definitely be able to successfully divorce. Don't expect to sit down peacefully as the Empress Ruan Qingyin. Ruan Qingyin was unaware of the movements on the other side of the Jinxiu Palace. After sending away the concubines to pay respects, she returned to the palace to rest for a while. Mainly for applying medicine. The location of the wound was difficult to pinpoint, so she had to feel and apply the ointment herself. She couldn't determine the severity, and the pain caused a layer of sweat to trickle down her forehead. Halfway up, I had to stop slowly. Out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly caught a glimpse of the rouge placed in front of the bronze mirror. It's the box that Mo Ranchen just sent. Ruan Qingyin stared for a while, then put down her skirt and threw the ointment under the bed. What else are you taking? The man couldn't possibly come up with any more ways to torture and humiliate her. Without this wound, she would have lost the weapon to balance Mo Ranchen. Thinking about it, Ruan Qingyin even wiped the part with the good medicine hole, until the scab cracked and bleeding out before stopping. She changed her clothes and smoked incense to cover the bloody smell on her body. She sat with the phoenix and drove to the heart-nourishing hall. Ruan Qingyin wants to go and ask for the phoenix seal. She wants to make a living and stand firm in this huge harem, without any real power in her hands. To overturn the case for the Ruan family and rescue the sister.In.law who is still suffering in the ancestral mansion, Ruan Qingyin must become the supreme ruler of this harem. Upon arriving at the heart-nourishing hall, Shi welcomed him and said, Empress, why did you come here? It's hot today, so be careful not to be exhausted by the summer heat. He received 2 golden pastries, and his attitude towards Ruan Qingyin was quite respectful. Ruan Qingyin lowered her eyes and showed a faint smile. Thank you very much, Duke Yanxi, for your concern. It doesn't matter to this palace. Is the emperor inside? I have something to discuss with the emperor. Our family will pass on the message, Empress, later, Yanxi said and entered the palace. After a while, she walked out again and said, Empress, the emperor has agreed. Please come with our family. Ruan Qingyin followed behind Yanxi and walked inside. The emperor's sleeping palace is several times larger than her Ruan Feng palace, with incense burners everywhere. The winding mist rises in the vast expanse, and the smell is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, only making Ruan Qingyin feel dizzy and dizzy. She had heard that the emperor had been indulging in women all year round, and his body was weak and he didn't want to die. So he begged for the elixir of longevity and longevity from all over the world, thinking about the kind of thing burning in the incense burner. Feeling dizzy from the aroma, Ruan Qingyin didn't even notice the music in the room. Following Shi into an inner room, she pushed open the screen and was stunned by the sight in front of her. Chapter 6. Wife is better than concubine, concubine is better than thief. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In front of the yellow pear-carved dragon-patterned stepping bed, more than a dozen women were dancing, with seductive movements, their eyes enchanting, and their bodies almost devoid of any trace. It is not an exaggeration to say that the face under the veil covers the most tightly all over the body. Ruan Qingyin was sent to a private school from a young age, studying the 4 books and 5 classics, which talked about the 7 grades and 8 virtues. She had never seen such a beautiful scene before, her cheeks were extremely hot, and she didn't know where to look. The music suddenly became lively at this moment, and the dancers danced even more vigorously. Their movements were too loud, and their open arms almost touched Ruan Qingyin. Ruan Qingyin was frightened and quickly retreated. A pair of big hands behind her firmly supported her, and her voice was low and hoarse, "Be careful, Empress." The familiar cold breath on the man's body struck, and Ruan Qingyin's back bristled with sweat. This imperial palace is a bit too small. How could you encounter Mo Ranchen anywhere? She hurriedly wanted to stay away from Mo Ranchen, pulling on the wound and causing her legs to soften in pain. Fortunately, Shi helped her in time and didn't fall. Ruan Qingyin took a deep breath with Shi's strength, suppressing the pain and saying, "Thank you, Grandpa Shi." "It's all what our family should do," Shi replied with a sharp and slender voice, her body trembling inexplicably. He felt a stern gaze staring at him from behind, but when he turned around, he only saw Mo Ranchen lowering his head to play with his wine glass. "It's probably an illusion." Shi thought and spoke to the emperor on the couch, "Your Majesty, the Empress has arrived." Under the golden silk quilt, the emperor was sitting diagonally on a soft pillow. On his already ethereal face, a hint of the elegance inherited from the royal bloodline could be vaguely discerned. At this moment, he was lost in thought and his gaze did not shift from the dancer's tender chest. He casually agreed, "My queen is here, sit down." Ruan Qingyin didn't sit down and found a corner to stand quietly. Who knows how many women have sat on that chair, what kind of filth it has been stained with, she finds it dirty. For a long time, after finishing a dance, the emperor was still unsatisfied and reluctantly withdrew his gaze, feeling extremely melancholy. What a great dancer, but unfortunately she has a leg injury. Now thinking about what the emperor had in mind, he looked at Mo Ranchen with a hint of flattery in his tone and said, "Uncle, these dancers are all gifts sent by the Japanese to make peace. Thanks to Uncle's bravery and skill in battle, he defeated those Japanese people in one fell swoop. I am very happy. Why not give Uncle a few dancers as a way to entertain himself when he is bored?" Mo Ranchen still played with the wine glass in his hand, his voice unable to hear any ripples. "I don't like this kind of thing," he said. "Oh." The emperor became interested. "What kind of thing does Uncle Huang like?" "What kind of it is?" Mo Ranchen wiped the emerald green wine glass with his fingertips, revealing the small figure in the corner. "It's probably because I'm a bit rebellious, and when it comes to choosing a woman, I always feel that a wife is better than a concubine, and a concubine is better than stealing," he said clearly. There was a fire burning in the palace, warm as spring, but Ruan Qingyin was still so cold that she clenched her pink fist. "I have already cursed Mo Ranchen millions of times in my heart. This lunatic." In front of the emperor, she was also so unbearable, poking her everywhere. Is this man willing to give up only if he insists on dragging her into an irreversible situation? The emperor on the bed didn't notice any difference, but his eyes lit up with a hint of excitement in his tone. "Uncle Huang, it's been rumored outside that you're a decent gentleman who doesn't like women. I didn't expect you to play so much in private, causing me to be cautious in front of you. Now I can feel at ease." Mo Ranchen's eyes flashed a hint of disdain, his thin lips slightly raised. It's strange that I didn't speak to the emperor earlier. The emperor waved his hand and said, it doesn't matter. Who does the emperor like? I can help you get married and grab it. Suddenly, Ruan Qingyin's heart felt as if it was suddenly pinched tightly by an invisible hand, and she couldn't even breathe. Despite trying to suppress her panic, the steps on her head shook slightly, making a clear and pleasant sound. Mo Ranchen's gaze was drawn towards him. The lacquered eyes couldn't tell whether it was a smile or any emotion. After staring at Ruan Qingyin for a while, they slowly said, since you like to steal it, pointing it to me doesn't mean much. Uncle Huang is right, the emperor had to give up with a casual tone, but if Uncle Huang changes his mind, just come to me and propose marriage. Thank you very much, Emperor. It's nothing, I'll leave first. Mo Ranchen turned around and glanced at the little woman at the corner. Probably because she had been staying in this room for too long, Ruan Qingyin's expression was very agonizing, and her palm-sized face was engraved with eagerness and disgust. That pitiful expression that made him want to vomit out, he really felt pity at first sight. Mo Ranchen felt a hint of playfulness in his heart as he slowly lifted his thin lips and said, the Empress doesn't look well. What are you guys doing in a daze? Why don't you support her? Dancers wearing only a few pieces of fabric rushed forward and helped Ruan Qingyin. Ruan Qingyin's face turned even whiter as she tried to push away the crowd. I don't like people I'm not familiar with to serve, Duke Yanxi. Please support me, she said, although Yanxi is also someone around this dog emperor, at least he is cleaner than these dancers. As soon as she pushed away the dancers, Ruan Qingyin felt much better, and her pale face had faded a bit. TSK. Mo Ranchen suddenly felt bored and gave a farewell notice to the king, then turned around and left. As soon as he left, the emperor's gaze fell on Ruan Qingyin. It is clear that Ruan Qingyin is the most well-dressed person in this room, but when paired with her stunning face, she suddenly exudes a hint of immortal aura, like a top-quality jade artifact, incredibly clear. The emperor spoke with a hint of surprise, I didn't even notice just now. The empress is even more beautiful than 5 years ago. Come over here and let me see more clearly. Chapter 7. The palace is so small. You are listening at novel.Audio. Even reluctantly, Ruan Qingyin suppressed her nausea and took a few steps forward. The scorpion-like gaze rolled back and forth on her, up and down, and finally let out a sigh, it's so beautiful. If it weren't for you wanting to be filial to your grandfather at home, I would have had you long ago. This filial piety is not very good. Your Majesty. Ruan Qingyin's voice suddenly increased a few times. Please be cautious, Your Majesty. My grandfather is celebrating his birthday and mourning, and I should be filial to him. In recent years, I have also prayed for Your Majesty, blessed the Ruan family, and blessed the prosperity of the Qi dynasty and the health of the Ruan family. But in my eyes, there was a hint of sadness overflowing. My grandfather accidentally killed her in order to prevent her from marrying the dog emperor, which earned her 5 years of filial piety. I thought it would take 5 years for the dog emperor to change his mind and marry someone else as the empress. But it was her who kept spinning around, and even the dog emperor could say that it was all due to her grandfather's untimely death. Ruan Qingyin really wants to kill this dog emperor now. But she cannot, nor can she. Fearless yet, taking action now will only implicate everyone in the Ruan family. The emperor was intimidated by these words and changed his tone, I was wrong for a moment. The empress's grandfather was also the founding father of the Qi dynasty. It is appropriate for the empress to be filial to him. After saying these words, she reached out from the couch and tried to pull Ruan Qingyin into her arms. Empress, don't be angry. Seeing your eyes turn red, my heart is about to break. Ruan Qingyin calmly took a step back and avoided the emperor's hand, which was covered in powder. I'm not angry, it's just that the incense in the palace is too strong and has been burned, she said, then I should show you even more, come to me quickly. The emperor pursued him relentlessly. The impatient appearance made Ruan Qingyin have no doubt that if the emperor's legs were good now, she would have been caught and pressed into the bed long ago. If Mo Ranchen turns back at this moment, will her situation change? The thought was immediately extinguished. Ruan Qingyin's heart was filled with self-deprecating laughter. She is so lowly. What is she hoping for Mo Ranchen to come back for? I'm afraid he will be more excited than others when he sees such a situation, and he hopes she will be harassed and humiliated more. Putting aside her thoughts in her eyes, Ruan Qingyin lifted her head again, leaving only Gu Jing Wubua in her clear eyes. The emperor's dragon body is not yet healed, and I dare not ask the emperor to worry anymore, she said with a slightly relieved tone without giving the emperor another chance to speak. Ruan Qingyin immediately said, "If the emperor truly loves my concubine, then he will agree to my request to come today." After twists and turns, Ruan Qingyin finally got to the point. She wants phoenix seal. Originally, Ruan Qingyin had prepared lengthy speeches to make the phoenix seal more legitimate. Before even a word could be spoken, the emperor readily agreed. "Isn't it just a phoenix seal? I'll have someone deliver it to you tomorrow." Ruan Qingyin's heart was pounding with excitement. This phoenix seal was too easy to obtain, which means she can take it tomorrow and go to see the suffering sister.In-law in the ancestral mansion under the guise of familiarity with her position. Without restraint, the tip of Ruan Qingyin's nose was slightly sour. "I knew I didn't misread the Empress. You are indeed a good seedling. No wonder Father Emperor decided to settle this marriage in the early years. In the future, you should be well respected by your mother in the world." The emperor's greedy gaze continued to circle around Ruan Qingyin. Finally, he sighed and said, "Unfortunately, I was injured. Otherwise, I should have praised you well today." Praise. Ruan Qingyin couldn't help but think with her toes that the so-called praise from the dog emperor was such filthy and vulgar language. She had a layer of goosebumps all over her body, and she tried to squeeze out a smile on her face. The emperor needs to take good care of his injuries first. The dragon's body is important. I remember that there are still a few concubines I haven't seen, so I'm leaving now. The beautiful and charming new queen is leaving, and the emperor is naturally reluctant. Following the past with his gaze, he became restless again. Even if you can't make a living now, it's still good to hold on to your arms and take a few sips of incense. Ruan Qingyin also noticed the snake-like gaze, her eyes dimmed in the darkness, and she walked towards the group of dancers. Without realizing it, she tore off the fabric in front of the dancer's chest. The vast and beautiful scenery was exposed in the eyes of the emperor, instantly diverting his attention. "I remember you called Little Lily, didn't you? Come over and let me see more clearly how white the lily flowers are." The dancer immediately approached with a shy smile, and the two of them flirted recklessly on the bed, familiar as if no one was around. Ruan Qingyin used this opportunity to escape and hurriedly left the heart-nourishing hall. Breathing in the fresh air outside, the feeling of drowsiness dissipated a bit. Ruan Qingyin took another breath and finally let go of her hand in the wide sleeves with intricate patterns. It's not in vain to go to this dog emperor's front. After obtaining the Phoenix Seal, her plan to overturn the case for the Ruan family can gradually be put into practice. The revenge of the Ruan family can be avenged. Ruan Qingyin's mood has improved a bit, even looking at this prison-like palace has added a touch of joy. She said to the palace maid beside her, "I'm going to visit the imperial garden in this palace. I heard that the hibiscus flowers have been blooming well recently, so I'll fold a few and put them as decorations in my bedroom. My sister.In-law loves hibiscus flowers the most. If I go to see her at the ancestral mansion tomorrow, I can bring them with me." When I went to the imperial garden, the hibiscus flowers grew in patches by the rockery, as if they were laid out in top-quality silk, and I couldn't even see the edges at a glance. Ruan Qingyin almost crossed her eyes, folded this one, and felt that the other one was better. After hesitating back and forth, the person approached the rockery more and more, almost diving in. I didn't plan to stop until my hands couldn't hold it anymore. At this moment, out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly caught a familiar figure, half hidden and half visible in the fake mountain. The cold and stern aura emanating from my body could also be felt from afar. Who is it? Not Mo Ranchen. Just beside him at this moment, there was still a woman wearing a bright red dress, like a rusted iron nail, piercing straight into Ruan Qingyin's pupils. Chapter 8. He is the variable. You are listening at novel full.audio. In the nearby rockery, Ning Yenner's white as snow arms draped over Mo Ranchen's robe, with most of her body pressed against it. Mo Ranchen not only did not push away, but also indulged, as if he had long been accustomed to such intimacy. Even, he reached out and caressed the light-colored magnolia flower in Ning Yenner's ear. Although she tilted her face, Ruan Qingyin could still see the corners of his slightly raised mouth and distinguish what Mo Ranchen was saying. Mo Ranchen said that the magnolia flowers in Ning Yenner's ear are very beautiful. Mulan flowers are indeed very beautiful, and Ruan Qingyin particularly likes them. Magnolia flowers are pure and flawless, symbolizing bravery, generosity, elegance, and purity. Once upon a time, Mo Ranchen would go to the flower beds dozens of miles outside the capital early in the morning to pick, just to give her the most beautiful one among the thousands of magnolias, saying that she was even more beautiful than the thousands of magnolias. But now, Mo Ranchen gave this flower to someone else. These two people have long been implicated, haven't they? Ruan Qingyin thought to herself, and a fine and dense pain surged in her heart. The hibiscus flower in her hand fell to the ground, rolling a circle of dust and becoming muddy. She wanted to bend down to pick it up, but her toes ran over it. The delicate petals immediately rotted to the point where red juice seeped out, staining Ruan Qingyin's shoes. Mottled, extremely unsightly. The thought of picking flowers disappeared completely, and Ruan Qingyin hurriedly left the rockery empty-handed. She had a wound on her leg, but walked faster than those palace maids. Within half a pillar of incense, she returned to the Luan Feng Palace and threw herself into a soft gold quilt. My chest is so stuffy that I can't even use it for lunch. Drowsy until evening, Ruan Qingyin barely regained her energy. After thinking for a while, her heart became clearer. Now is not the time for her to feel heartbroken for these children. She entered the palace as the queen, but for the sake of the Ruan family. The Ruan family needs her. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. Ruan Qingyin got up early in the morning and sat in front of the bronze mirror, carefully covering the accumulation in her eyes with powder. She didn't sleep well last night. Firstly, it's because I'm worried that Mo Ranchen will break through the window again, and secondly, I hope that after receiving the Phoenix Seal today, I can naturally bring my sister.in.law back to my own palace. After much thought, I fell asleep until dawn. That night, Ruan Qingyin almost arranged everything for her sister.in.law's future. I don't know why, but somewhere in my heart is always a bit empty. Even several times, her gaze intentionally or unintentionally swept over the tightly closed window. What flashed in my mind was the intimate appearance of Mo Ranchen and Ning Yenner in the rockery. The suffocating feeling struck again, and Ruan Qingyin shook her head, dismissing it from her mind. She couldn't tell Mo Ranchen the truth about abandoning him back then, nor could she be with him again. So, who is Mo Ranchen with and what does it have to do with her? She can't control it. Ruan Qingyin restrained the emotions in her eyes and got up to paint herself in front of the bronze mirror, then went to pay her respects to the concubines. Today I had to wait for Feng Yin, but Ruan Qingyin had no intention of dealing with these women. After a few hasty words, she prepared to let everyone disperse. As soon as I reached the screen, I could hear the concubines below discussing. Do you know why Consort Ning didn't come to greet the Empress today? Didn't the palace maid who came to pass the message say that Consort Ning has a guest to meet, so she can't come over? Indeed, there are guests, and they are also distinguished guests. The distinguished guest who delivers the great fortune is the regent. He sent the phoenix seal to concubine Ning early in the morning. Ruan Qingyin paused in her footsteps, as if struck by lightning, and was pinned in place. Chapter 9. Avoiding her missing. You are listening at novel full.audio. Ruan Qingyin's legs were like lead, tightly bound in place. The discussion outside the screen is still ongoing. The Empress had just entered the palace, but the phoenix seal was delivered to concubine Ning at this time, which means, don't mention anything you don't know, be careful not to cause trouble. However, I see that the regent kings with a large influence in the court personally go to deliver the phoenix seal. The father of consort Ning is also the prime minister, so it's likely that the two families are friendly. I need to write a letter home to remind my brother to be careful and not do anything foolish in class. The two voices gradually faded away and disappeared into Ruan Qingyin's ear. For a long time, Ruan Qingyin walked with heavy steps back to her own dormitory. She called Bishui, who was accompanying her into the palace, to inquire about the reality and emptiness. Before he could speak, she sent the emperor's oral edict. Empress, the emperor thought that the empress had just entered the palace and everything had not been properly arranged. He didn't want the empress to work too hard, so he asked concubine Ning to take care of her first. When everything was ready, she would be in charge. Ruan Qingyin lowered her eyes, her delicate eyelashes like feather fans, casting a large shadow on her fair and delicate face. Ignoring Shi's words, he asked, did anyone ever go to the emperor's place again after the Japanese palace left yesterday? The regent went once and said it was an important matter to discuss. It was not a confidential matter, so Shi answered truthfully. Upon hearing these words, Ruan Qingyin's heart plummeted a bit harder, causing pain that even her breathing was blocked. It is indeed the hand of Mo Ranchen. In order to prevent her from getting better, even entrusting the phoenix seal to the noble consort for safekeeping, such a humiliating tactic can be imagined. Ink-stained dust, what a masterpiece. Ruan Qingyin lowered her head and looked at the carved pattern on the persimmon stem embroidered on her skirt. It meandered downwards and happened to have no pattern at the root of her thigh. The wound seems to be starting to hurt again, causing her eyes to turn red. Not wanting Shi to see her embarrassment, Ruan Qingyin didn't change her tone and said, okay, it's just that consort Ning has taken action against our palace. If we don't understand anything in the future, we'll have to send her to explain it one by one. Shi smiled falsely and said, you are the empress, the head of the harem, and even the mother of a country. It is appropriate to ask others to do things. In a few words, Ruan Qingyin dismissed Shi. Although she may seem indifferent on the surface, Ruan Qingyin knows in her heart how important Feng Yin is to her. Ruan Qingyin wanted to meet Mo Ranchen and retrieve Feng Yin from him again. Sitting in a sedan chair, Ruan Qingyin headed to the Jingxin studio. Along the way, the accompanying palace maids chattered incessantly, telling Ruan Qingyin about the origin of the house. The original meditation studio was a place where Buddhist scriptures were stored in the temple. However, after a fire broke out, it was handed over to the regent for repair. Later on, it became the regent's residence in the palace, close to the emperor's sleeping quarters, making it convenient to be escorted at any time. After listening, Ruan Qingyin's heart was filled with a hint of sneer. Escort. Who needs to protect and convert the houses in the Buddhist temple into dormitories? Mo Ranchen did indeed cover the sky with only one hand in the palace, and did such an unconventional thing, but it was still beyond reproach. Can she really succeed in asking for the phoenix seal? Ruan Qingyin felt a sense of retreat in her heart, and gritted her teeth to look ahead. She must succeed, no matter what method she uses. Thinking recklessly all the way, the sedan chair drove to the front of the Jingxin studio. From a distance, I saw two men wearing flying fish suits standing at the door, one big and one small, one fat and one thin, one tall and one short. It looks like there's a bean sprout next to the big weight. These two are capable generals by the regent side, the tall and powerful one is called Depang, and the slim and petite one is called Xiaoshou. The accompanying palace maid whispered. Ruan Qingyin secretly tugged at the corner of her mouth. This name is really fitting. She walked forward with a pair of apricot eyes that were calm and composed, and said in a faint tone, "Is the regent in there? I need to ask him for help in this palace." "The regent left the palace early in the morning," said the chubby and skinny woman, bowing respectfully to Ruan Qingyin, but also feeling distant. "Have you left? Do you know she will come to ask about Feng Yin, so you should stay away first." Chapter 10. Do you really treat yourself as something? You are listening at novel.Audio. Ruan Qingyin felt as if she had been stung by something in her heart. But soon, he regained his spirit and continued to ask Big Fat and Little Thin, when will he come back? Where is the whereabouts of the regent that we, as subordinates, can know, replied Big Fat and Little Thin. Ruan Qingyin had to give up and turned around to leave. Forget it, I didn't wait today. Come back tomorrow. For 3 consecutive days, Ruan Qingyin went to the Jingxin studio to find Mo Ranchen, but every time she went, she could only see Big Fat and Small Thin. Mo Ranchen seemed to forget that there was still such a residence in the palace, staying outside the palace without any intention of returning. Even Ning Yenner didn't show up, and the morning greeting was called Palace Maid Legend Embracing Sickness, saying she was very tired. Ruan Qingyin didn't have the heart to guess whether she was really tired or whether she deliberately showed off her strength in front of her after getting the phoenix seal. I really don't have that time, because she's going out of the palace and back to the door today. According to the rules of Daki, it should be the parents who enter the palace and meet with her and the emperor. But because the emperor broke his leg and couldn't stay, she decided to let her go back to her mother's house on her own. Ruan Qingyin was extremely excited, and even the frustration of not getting the phoenix seal dissipated. She started packing things early in the morning, packing all the items she thought were good, so that she could carry them back to the Nguyen mansion for her parents. After a busy day, she finally arrived at the noon gate. The carriage for leaving the palace is ready. The carriage is made entirely of golden silk and nanmo, with 2 sweaty white BMW horses at the front. Even the whip in the groom's hand shines, as if it is woven with gold wire. Ruan Qingyin blinked in surprise. The dog emperor walked back to her 3 times and surprisingly made such a generous gesture, giving her such a face. Empress, please get on the carriage. The eunuch lay on the ground and made a carriage stone for Ruan Qingyin. Ruan Qingyin didn't like this way of getting on the car that was a way of trampling people, but it was not easy to lose her dignity, so she quickly stepped on it and wanted to get on the car as soon as possible. For a moment, I took a big step and pulled the wound between my legs, which made me feel so painful that I fell straight into the curtain. In the next moment, the whole person pounced on a thick and warm wall. A faint Buddha fragrance lingers at the tip of my nose, accompanied by the thin and cold laughter. How did the Empress become so enthusiastic after a few days' absence? Ruan Qingyin was stunned, then lifted the curtain in front of her and saw the man sitting in the carriage. It was Mo Ranchen, whom she had been squatting for several days without seeing. Today, Mo Ranchen was wearing a regular uniform, a tea white and dark flower Hayu Ruijin long shirt, with a jade plaque hanging from his waist, highlighting a hint of coldness and killing intent on his body. Paired with that handsome face full of smiles, there was a hint of a wealthy young master who was obsessed with extravagance all day long. Even Ruan Qingyin really smelled the fragrance of powder from him. The passionate and flamboyant purple rose fragrance, mixed with the unique aroma of rose essential oil from the western regions, runs unstoppably in this narrow carriage, transforming into a big net and trapping Ruan Qingyin in it. Ruan Qingyin also received a bottle of such rose essential oil yesterday. It was sent by someone sent by Ning Yenner. It is said that when counting the warehouses in the harem, she discovered the fun of paying tribute from the western regions last year. The emperor rewarded her for her hard work in managing the harem. Ning Yenner couldn't bear to eat alone and gave her a bottle to share. Ruan Qingyin didn't want to smell it at all and was kept at the bottom of the box. Unexpectedly, I still smelled it from Mo Ranchen today. I have to rush out of the palace and return home, so I don't have time to chat with the regent. I think the prince has been working hard since he left the palace for 3 days. It's better to go rest now. I won't see the prince off the car. Ruan Qingyin clenched her fist and ordered to leave. Mo Ranchen had no intention of leaving. He leaned diagonally against the carriage, playing with the jade ring on his fingers intentionally or unintentionally. His eyes were filled with a deep and inexplicable dark tide. Empress, I was in a hurry to come back early in the morning and couldn't even take a sip of water, so I was sent to escort my wife. She drove me away like this, and I am truly saddened. Hurry back early in the morning to escort her. I'm afraid I've seen enough of her jokes in the harem before continuing to challenge her. Ruan Qingyin breathed a sigh of relief in her heart, and her tone also cooled down. It's not that this palace begged the prince to come. If the prince doesn't want to, he can leave now. After speaking, don't turn your face and don't want to look at him anymore. Mo Ranchen's smile instantly faded away, and with a wave of his big hand, he pulled her into his arms. The curtain fell down, blocking everything outside and also tightly blocking the figures of the two people who were leaning against each other. Ruan Qingyin, Mo Ranchen extended his big hand with distinct joints and casually pinched her smooth jaw, forcing his gaze to look at each other. After being the queen for a few days, do you really consider yourself something? Believe it or not, I will make you, the queen, a prisoner now.